We're going to do a yoga class today that is going to take some familiar poses that we know pretty well, and we're going to layer them to kind of build a sequence that feels fun. So it's going to be an engaging yoga class that has a lot of the same, familiar poses that we already know, right? But also goes through the full body spectrum of shoulders and hips and back and all the things. So welcome to those of you who are joining me on video. Those of you who are here live, thank you very much for being here. The way I like to start our practice today is just by sitting nice and upright. Set a thumb and first finger together. Close your eyes here, and let's take a couple rounds of full deep breath in and out through the nostrils. As you take this deep breath in and out, start with your ujjayi breath, your whisper breath. Little whisper on the inhale for about 4 or 5 seconds in, and a little whisper on the exhale, maybe 5 or 6 seconds out. This is the moment where we get a chance to mentally switch gears and arrive here in our yoga practice, kind of put other things aside for a moment. And in fact, I want to find a deeper focus by doing something really simple. And it might seem overly simple, but it's really effective. As you inhale in your mind, say the word inhale. And as you exhale in your mind, say the word exhale. And this has the ability to really find a nice focus inward as we start our practice. Now, you'd be welcome to join me, or you're welcome to just listen, but I'm going to start this practice by chanting Om once together. So if you want to join me, place your palms together with your hands at your heart. We'll breathe in. So with your hands on your knees now, roll your shoulders back and do a little arch in your back. Roll your shoulders forward and around your spine. Start to move back and forth, inhaling, opening up your heart, exhaling, rounding, rolling forward. And don't forget your ujjayi breath. When you've gone back and forth like this several times, lean over to one side and start to make a circle forward and around with your trunk, back and around, just kind of making these circles as we start to open up through our spine, open up through our shoulders and our neck. Now in our practice today, I'm really going to work hard on both instructing the class, but also I'm going to be demonstrating a lot of the poses as well. Switch and go the opposite direction. And then once you've made a couple of these big circles, open your arms wide, reach your hands toward the ceiling, and this is a little bit funky. You're going to bring your palms together, bring your hands behind your head, like this. Point your elbows up toward the ceiling, and lean the back of your head into your wrists. Now this makes you create a little bit of a back bend. So you're going to mitigate that just a little bit by rooting your sitting bones a little bit more firmly down into the mat. And then release this and come forward to a hands and knees pose. Let's start to move into a cat-cow position. So with your shoulders right over your wrists, do an inhale and lean forward, lift your tailbone up a bit. Exhale, round your spine, draw your tailbone under a little bit. And then again, inhale, open up your chest. It feels amazing. Exhale, round your spine. Now we're going to expand this just a little bit to inhale like we've been doing. But this time on the exhale, round your spine and lower all the way down into child's pose. Then inhale, come right back to hands and knees. And exhale back to child's. And let's just do this a few times. Now you're still moving at the rhythm of your own breath, so you could be a little bit faster or slower than me. And let's say on your next exhale, keep your toes or curl your toes under and lift your hips in the air for a bent kneed version of down dog. Knees are so bent your thighs almost touch your rib cage, and you're just going to
kind of pedal your heels, left heel down, right heel down, as one leg goes relatively straight, then the other leg goes relatively straight. Just kind of get these muscles engaged, and then slow motion, bend your knees back down to the mat, lean your chest forward again, inhale, and exhale, round your spine, lower back slowly to child's pose. Back to hands and knees, inhale. And exhale, downward facing dog pose. Knees could be bent or legs could be straight. I'm going to keep my knees a little bit bent at first. Now, this time, straighten up your legs, roll your way into a plank position, and then we're going to roll our way back into down dog. Lift up through the shoulders, middle back, hips, maybe a little bend in the knees as your tailbone lifts to the sky. Tuck your tail again, push through your feet, roll forward into plank. Push your hands to the floor, press back into downward facing dog pose. Last time, roll all the way to plank position, and this time, lower all the way to the floor for a dynamic cobra. You're going to roll your shoulders back, inhale into cobra pose, and then exhale, lower back down, belly, chest, chin to the mat. Good. Lead with the shoulders. Looks excellent. Open up your chest, and then exhale, lower back down. Nice. Good. Great job keeping the elbows together, kind of pulled into the ribs is what I mean to say. Good, and all the way back down. Now, either through upper push-up or hands and knees, come to plank on your way to downward facing dog. And let's hold down dog for a couple of breaths. So maybe our first sort of dedicated down dog where we get a chance to take a couple long, deep breaths here. Maybe this first exhale, you might even give yourself a sigh out the mouth. Now look up to your hands, and as you inhale, step your right foot up between your hands. Put your left knee all the way down to the mat, and give yourself a little stretch in the left groin muscle. Just a little teeny bit here. Then put your left foot toenail side down. Raise your arms toward the ceiling into Anjaneyasana. Keep a little bit of pressure of your left foot kind of toenail side down into the mat. Now, kind of like we did at the beginning of our class, you're going to bend your elbows, put your hands behind your head. As your elbows still point up to the sky, you're going to lean your head back into your wrists. And with an exhale, place your fingertips down to the floor, pick up your back knee, and do a step switch or a hop switch. Left foot in front, right foot in back. Put your right knee down to the mat, and just start off with like an easy low lunge. A couple rounds of full deep breath here. When you've had a couple rounds of this deep breath, then reach your arms forward and up into Anjaneyasana. This low lunge, reaching up to the sky pose. And after 3 or 4 breaths there, bring your hands behind your head, point your elbows still to the sky. Now, as your head pulls back into your hand, this gives you a deeper back bend, and you're going to think of your sitting bones still rooting down to the floor. At the same time, your heart is opening up. Then with an exhale, place your fingertips to the floor, step your right foot forward to meet your left into a standing forward fold. Feet about as wide as your hips, maybe even a little wider, because on the inhale, you're going to bend your knees, drop your hips about as low as your knees as you look forward, and draw your shoulder blades together. Yeah. Straighten up your legs, fold forward as you round your spine. Easy enough to feel good. Bend your knees, open up your chest. Enough intensity that it's interesting. Enough ease, it's comfortable, and just rock and roll this thing back and forth. Inhaling, looking forward, and exhaling, straightening up, folding forward. Back and forth. Now in this forward fold, walk your hands to the left, reach with your right arm, and pull your right hip back. See if you can find a little stretch going on through your right side. Walk your hands over to the left, to the right, and reach with your left. Pull your left hip back, so see if you can find your stretch going on through the left side. And then eventually just bring it back to middle and kind of hang like a rag doll forward in a nice, decadent, forward fold stretch. A couple rounds of deep breath. Put a little bend in the knees, open your arms wide as you stand all the way up, reach toward the ceiling, and as you exhale, bring your hands together back to heart. A little bend in the knees, reach back up to the sky as you straighten your legs all the way out. With an exhale, open and lean through your chest. Head's neutral as we come all the way down, back into Uttanasana. Ardha Uttanasana, lean your chest away, inhale as you look forward. Then step back into a plank position. Hold this for maybe one full breath. On an exhale, lower slowly into Chaturanga. And then roll your shoulders back as you open up your chest into Cobra. Now we might get into an upward facing dog a little bit later, but really focus on keeping your elbows pulled in, head really neutral, back engagement, not overly engaged. Looks excellent. And then let's press back into downward facing dog pose. Lift and spread your toes, activate your shin muscles, and then relax your toes again as you draw your heels back to the floor. Now, as you breathe in, raise your right leg up in the air behind you into a three-legged downward facing dog. Keep pushing back through the ball of your right big toe. Then look forward and step your right foot up toward your right thumb. Turn your left heel flat and step it to the left a little bit as we prepare for Virabhadrasana 1 or Warrior 1. Reach your arms forward and up to the sky. A nice solid bend in your front knee so that your right knee is more or less right over your ankle, in line with your second toe, so the toes are straight forward, hips are more or less squared forward. Now as your chest is lifting upward toward the ceiling, think of your tailbone pulling down gently to the floor. Now the next time you exhale, place your left fingertips to the ground, lift your left heel off the floor, and twist. Reach your right arm toward the sky. One more breath in, open up your chest a little bit more toward the ceiling. As you exhale, place both palms to the floor as you slide back into a plank and lower down to Chaturanga. Pull into Cobra pose, maybe a high or medium Cobra pose, and let's find our way back into a downward facing dog pose. A couple rounds of deep full breath here in downward facing dog. Let every pose be like a level 7 intensity. If 10 is your most intense, hang out at a 7. No more than a 7 or less. Now inhale, raise your left leg up in the air. To step forward, bring your right heel high off the floor, pull your left knee to chest, and slowly step your left foot up to left thumb. Turn your right heel flat at a 45-degree angle. Square your hips, and as you engage your core, raise your arms, Virabhadrasana 1. Full deep breath. Now if this messes with your back knee, step your right foot over to the right a little bit more, and even turn your toes a little bit more forward. If that still messes with your back knee, you can always change this pose into crescent lunge with your right heel lifted off the floor rather than ground to the floor. Either way, put your right hand down on the floor, and if it's not already, lift your right heel as you now send your left arm toward the sky in our twisting crescent lunge position or twisting high lunge position. Nice full big deep breath in, and then exhale, place both hands down to the floor. Your choice, either go straight into a downward facing dog or move through a vinyasa. Vinyasa is to say Chaturanga, upward facing dog, and downward facing dog. Now raise your right leg up in the air on an inhale. Step the right foot forward between your hands, and then open up into a Warrior 2 position. I'm going to turn around so I can face you. But here in a Warrior 2 position, Nice solid deep bend in your front knee. Place your left hand to your hip. Turn your right palm open toward the ceiling and raise your right arm up into reverse warrior two. Keep your front knee nice and bent still. Slide your left hand down your thigh a little bit, or wrap your left arm back behind your body for a little bit deeper expression. On the exhale, place your right fingertips to the floor on the outside of your right foot. Send your left arm across your temple. So we'll come all the way into side angle pose. So bring your right hand down to the floor. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Open up back to warrior two pose as you shorten your distance a little bit in warrior two and lean forward now into triangle pose. If I have a block, this is where I like to use a block. Blocks are optional. Notice where you feel the stretch. Take a deep breath as if you could direct your stretch, your energy right into that place where you feel this. Open up your chest a little bit more, and as you exhale, maybe slide a little bit deeper, still comfortable in this pose. Looks really amazing. And then exhale, place both hands to the floor as you slide back into plank pose on your way through a vinyasa. Four or five long breaths here in a downward facing dog pose. Raise your left leg in the air on inhale and step the left foot forward between your hands. Open into warrior two pose on the left side. Again, I'm going to turn around so we're all kind of facing the same direction. Good, your knees right over your ankle. Your back hip, right hip might be kind of at an angle forward, kind of like at a 45. I'm more interested in what's happening on this leg with those toes pointing forward. Okay, reverse warrior two, or reverse warrior, put your hand to your hip and raise your left arm upward toward the ceiling. A nice solid deep bend in your front knee. Give yourself a couple of rounds of deep breath, opening up your left rib cage. It might even serve you to wrap your right hand back behind your body for a little bit deeper expression here. One more full deep breath in, and as you exhale, windmill both hands down to the floor as you slide back into, oh wait, we forgot a pose. Bring your left foot forward again. Move back into warrior two. Let's go side angle pose. I got so wrapped up. I think we missed two poses actually. So wrapped up in that chaturanga. Now I've got the left hand on the outside of the left foot. Now you could do either. Whatever's most comfortable. This allows me to kind of open up my chest a little bit more. Now let's go to warrior two. And lest we forget my favorite pose, triangle pose. Let's take it forward. Bring it down to the floor of the shin as your right arm reaches up toward the sky. Try dropping your arm parallel to the wall in front of you. And then pull your shoulder back. And then open your arm back toward the ceiling again as you open up your chest even more to the sky. This acts like a lever, like a crowbar to kind of open up your chest. Keep your pubic bone slightly lifted toward your navel so your core is engaged as a way of supporting the archway in the upper back. Now let's come down to the floor and move through our vinyasa. Couple rounds of full deep breath as we now look forward to hands. Inhale, bend your knees, look forward, and walk, hop, or step feet to hands. As you breathe in, pull your shoulder blades together as you lean forward, look forward, exhale, round your spine again, and stand all the way up, reach toward the sky, and exhale, hands back to heart. So 2 sun salutations. Even though we've done a lot of work already in our practice, now we're going to start to add the vinyasa element to it. So now we're going to start to move, coordinating breath and movement, and add some poses. Okay, so we're going to start off with some sun salutations. Inhale, raise your arms to the sky, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, dive forward nice and slowly. Lengthen your chest out and away. Inhale, and then as you exhale, step or float into Chaturanga. Cobra or an upward facing dog, inhale, and downward facing dog for 4 or 5 breaths. I don't know about you, but my hamstrings and calves are getting a little bit more flexible. My heels are coming a little bit closer to the floor now that I'm a little bit more loosened up. Still hanging out at that level 6 or 7 intensity, just enjoying my body as it starts to open up. Bend your knees a little, look forward to your hands, inhale, and then exhale, walk or hop forward. As you land, lengthen your trunk out and away, inhale. Fold forward again on your exhale. Put a little bend in the knees to help you stand all the way up using leg strength. And as you exhale, hands back to heart. Let's do one more of these just like this. Inhale, reach it up. Exhale, breathing out the nostrils using Ujjayi breath. Lengthen your trunk out and away, inhale, and then step or float chaturanga. Exhale. Cobra or an upward facing dog, and downward facing dog. My spine is loving all this movement. It feels really excellent. I hope it feels likewise for you. If not, take it easy or make it a little bit more intense. Kind of match what your body needs. You're going to look forward to your hands, inhale, bend your knees a bit, walk or hop feet on the exhale. Feet to hands on the exhale. Inhale, lengthen out and away. Fold forward again on your exhale, rounding your spine. Stand up, inhale, reach toward the ceiling, and exhale, hands back to heart. Now move into chair pose, Utkatasana. Today in Utkatasana, bring your hands together, bend your elbows as you bring your hands behind your head, point the elbows toward the ceiling as you pull your head into your wrists, draw your tailbone slightly down toward the floor. Straighten up and fold forward, hang out in a Uttanasana, forward fold for a couple of breaths. Slide your hands up to about your kneecaps on an inhale, and then step or hop chaturanga on the exhale. Cobra or an up dog, inhale. Maybe the spine is open up to go to a full upward facing dog right about now. Downward facing dog on your exhale. Now raise your right leg in the air, inhale. Step your right foot forward between your hands, exhale. Move back into warrior one pose, breathe in. Good. Now this time on the exhale, put your palms together, bring your hands behind you as you point your elbows toward the ceiling and bend your front knee even deeper. Now this gives you a little bit of a back bend, or maybe a big back bend. So you're going to draw your tailbone slightly toward the floor to take some of that compression out of the back. Now as you exhale, place your left fingertips to the floor, but on the outside of your right foot, lift your left heel if you'd like, and send your right arm toward the ceiling. If you'd like, you could do the half bind by wrapping your left hand behind you, your right hand behind you so you hold on to your left hip with your right hand. Release, place both hands to the floor as you slide back either straight into downward facing dog or move through a vinyasa. Raise your left leg in the air on an inhale. Step left foot forward between your hands on the exhale. Move into warrior one again as you breathe in. After a few breaths, bend your elbows, resting your knuckle or your wrists behind your head, behind the occiput. As your head pulls back into your wrists, point the elbows to the sky, draw your tailbone downward toward the floor. And then as you exhale, drop your right hand to the outside of your left foot. Send your left arm toward the sky. Now I've chosen to keep my right heel lifted rather than keeping it in a warrior one stance with the right heel flat. Place both hands back to the floor. Slide it back either straight into downward facing dog or move through a vinyasa. Five or six long breaths here in downward facing dog. Maybe take an inhale through the nostrils and a sigh out the mouth. Raise your right leg in the air on an inhale. Step your right foot forward between the hands on the exhale and move into Warrior Two position. Again, I'm going to turn around so I can face you. Now, reverse warrior as you raise your right arm to the sky. This time, place your right hand behind your head. As you pull your head back into your hand, slide your left hand either down your thigh or, again, wrap it around and hold on to the inside of your right thigh. Alternatively, you could also hold on, kind of clasp your fingers between your shoulder blades. Release this as you open back into Warrior Two on your way to side angle, this time with the right hand on the inside of your right foot. Wrap your left hand behind you and grab hold of the inside of your thigh for the half bind, or reach your right forearm under your thigh for the full bound version of Parsvakonasana. A couple rounds of deep breath. Looks amazing. Okay, unwind, back to Warrior Two. Let's not forget triangle on this side. Now we're going to take kind of a different version of triangle. With the right hand on your shin, send your left arm across your temple. Reach, and then place your left hand behind your head. As you pull your head into your hand, make your tailbone go long. So your lower back is lengthening. Yeah. Like your armpit is kind of reaching toward the elbow. Your left hip is pulling back to the wall behind you. Go a little bit deeper into this pose. Good. And then as you exhale, place both hands to the floor and take it back into downward facing dog. Raise your left leg in the air on an inhale. Step the left foot forward between your hands on the exhale. And let's open up into Warrior Two pose on the left side. Okay, so we're building these sequences and they're kind of increasing a little bit intensity. Stay strong because after we do one more set of these, then we're going to take a nice break. So, we're kind of right in kind of climbing toward an apex here. Hang with me. Left hand to the sky, reach your right hand to your hip, reach up, bend your left elbow with your hand behind your head, and if it serves you, wrap your right arm behind your body for the half-bound version, or send your fingertips between your shoulder blades as you hold on between the shoulder blades. Release the pose, put your left fingertips down to the floor on the inside. Maybe you can keep your right hand wrapped behind you for our half-bound version of Parsvakonasana, or you know where we're going, try the fully bound version of this pose. Unwind back into Warrior Two. Shorten your triangle, your stance just a little bit for triangle pose. Lean forward, hand to shin. Now reach your right arm, your top arm across your temple. Yeah. I like how much you're twisting and opening toward the ceiling. That's perfect. Remember your core strength here. Now rest your right hand behind your head and pull your head back into your hand. Feel that decadent stretch all the way down through those right ribs, the lats, the inner, in between the rib muscles, the intercostals, the QL between the hip and the rib muscles, all that jazz. And then finally put your hands down to the floor as we step back, either downward facing dog pose or move through vinyasa. Now we're going to take a little bit longer of a downward facing dog pose. A, because down dog is awesome and it feels amazing. But B, this will kind of act as like a almost rest pose. So really try lengthening your breaths. Shake your head yes and no. Keep your jaw nice and soft. All right, here we go. I'm going to combine some of these sequences together, add a couple poses. Raise your raise your right leg up in the air, three-legged dog. Step right foot forward between your hands. Inhale, warrior one. As you exhale, place your wrists behind the base of your skull. Point your elbows to the sky. Draw your tailbone toward the floor. Bend your front knee even a little bit deeper. And as your arms reach forward, kind of like a karate chop, lean forward and let that pull you into warrior three position. Put your left hand to the floor, reach your right arm toward the sky. Twisted half moon position. And then step your left foot all the way to the back of your mat and put your left hand to the outside of your right foot for our twisted high lunge position with the optional bind if your shoulders would appreciate that. Bring it all the way back around. Now, when you release, windmill around and open into warrior two pose. Whew, keep it strong. We're going, this is excellent. Left hand to hip, right hand to the sky. Bring your right hand behind your head. Swing your left hand behind your body. Warrior two on your way to side angle pose. Now again, try the bind. If you're super flexible from the bind, you can just start to straighten your right leg into a bound version of triangle. If that's a little bit more hamstrings than you bargained for, just try this half bound triangle with your left hand wrapped behind your body and right hand to the floor. Keep your head pulling back, lift your pubic bone slightly toward the navel. Now if you're in this half bound version, reach your right arm forward parallel to the mat. A little more effort in your leg. And then as you exhale, place both hands down to the floor and step into a downward facing dog pose or move through a vinyasa. This is the last step of the heavy lifting. Stay with me, you can do it. Here we go, lefty lift to the sky, full deep breath in. Set left foot forward between your hands toward your left thumb. Warrior one, inhale. Bend your elbows with the base of your thumb behind the base of your skull. Point your elbows toward the ceiling as your tailbone goes long. So you're really engaging your upper back muscles, but not at the sacrifice of lower back. And now as you swing your hands forward, balance into warrior three pose. This is my good side. Place your right fingertips to the floor, keep your hips square, but right heel lifted as your left arm reaches toward the sky for twisted half moon pose. And then finally, bend your left knee as your right foot comes all the way down to the mat, and put your right hand to the outside of your left foot, reaching your left arm to the sky. And if it works, you can try the half bind or the full bound version of this pose. Otherwise, keep your left hand lifting upward toward the sky. Okay, last smile. Here we go. We're going to do this windmill into warrior two. Turn this into reverse warrior. Your version, maybe put your left hand behind your head, swing your right hand back behind the body, or clasp between the shoulder blades. Beautiful. Back through warrior two on your way to bound side angle pose. Keep your right shoulder pulling back, looks amazing. Either begin to straighten your front leg into a bound triangle, Or release the bind and try half-bound triangle with your right hand behind you but left hand to the floor. Keep your deep breaths moving. If you are in the half-bound triangle, send your left arm forward, parallel to the mat. I call this triangle with a Y, T-R-Y angle, because you have to try really hard in this pose. Last breath, everybody. Looks amazing. Release both hands to the floor. Step it back. I do through one more vinyasa because you just can't get enough of chaturangas in your life. Or whatever. Give yourself a couple rounds of downward facing dog, rounds of breath in downward facing dog. And then let's take a well-deserved child's pose. Knees to the mat, hips to heels, or whatever feels restful, and relax with some rounds of full deep breath. Now, for the next 4 or 5 breaths, focus on your exhale. Really get that breath out. It's amazing what that does for recovery. It's almost like you've forgotten the inhale part of Ujjayi breath and you're just emphasizing that long aspirant exhale. Now come back up to hands and knees pose, and let's start to move in a figure 8 pattern through the hips. So hips back around by the heels. As you inhale, move your hips forward and around by your wrists. Good. So I want to move toward either a preparation for headstand pose or headstand, depending on what your body feels like it wants to do, okay? And I like the forearm press headstand, where I'm going to hold on to the basically kind of this back part of my skull here and use my forearms as the triangular base to keep me solid. I'm going to try to put 70% of my weight into my shoulders and maybe barely just a little teeny bit on the top of my head. Now, I try to touch just maybe an inch above my hairline right there on the yoga mat. So if you're familiar or comfortable with headstand, go for it. Otherwise, if you want to watch me do it once, I'll show you the principles and the full pose, and you can choose whichever one you want to do. So I'm going to start with the elbows on the mat. I'm going to clasp my biceps. This gives my elbows to be that perfect shoulder distance apart. Then when I release that, I bring my hands together and turn the palms open, cradling the back of my skull and allowing just a very little bit of the top of my head to touch the mat. I squeeze the shoulder blades in, curl my toes under, and I'm pressing my forearms into the floor. So there's not a lot of pressure on my head at all. And then I start to walk my toes forward to get my hips a little bit more vertical over my shoulders. That could be my headstand. Maybe one leg goes up in the air. As I reach with my heel, I push the elbows into the floor, and it feels like my body just wants to come up naturally in the headstand. I'm pretty stable because I've taken the time to set myself up, balance between elbows, and then I'll come back down similarly and relax. Now, when we make this, so we're making this tripod, and the tripod is a perfect balance on 2 planes, right? The sagittal plane and the coronal plane. It gives, the perfect
amount of balance so I don't fall this way or that way or this way or that way. Now, what it often tends to happen is the base gets broad, and with that broad base, I end up wanting to fall this way or that way. What typically happens is falling this way. So if you're too narrow, you're liable to fall right or left, which rarely happens. But that's why it's important to find that equilateral triangle, because that's going to give you the perfect balance points for either plane. Okay? How does your neck feel? Feels okay? Let's give it a shot and see where it goes. Okay? Say again? Oh yeah, absolutely. Go against the wall. It's perfect. You've got a bunch of wall space to use, just all for yourself. And for those of you who are at home and you're interested in doing this too, I'm going to go up against the wall too so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I think it's brilliant. So if you're going to be using the wall, yes, do the same kind of thing. You're proximal to the wall. Sit your elbows, clasp your biceps, plant your palms as you cradle your head in your palms. Lift your hips up and just kind of walk your toes to the elbows. Pause for a moment to make sure that you don't have too much pressure on your wrists. Send one leg up, and then as you push your elbows into the mat, your heel meets the wall, the other heel meets the wall, and squeeze as you push your legs together and reach the soles of up toward the ceiling. Yeah. The whole room is upside down. This is fantastic. And when you feel like you've had a good run with this, ease your way back down to the floor and relax in child's pose. Now I'm going to have you stay at the wall, and if you're not at the wall, for those of you who are at home, if you're not on the wall, get to the wall, because what I want to get to next, since we're here close to the wall, we're going to kind of lean into the wall and do a legs up the wall pose, which will be a perfect counter pose for headstand. Okay? So essentially what you're going to do is just lie down on your back with your legs up the wall. Voila. But what we're going to do is we're going to bend our knees and place the feet against the wall. And then as you push your feet into the wall, you're going to slowly roll up your spine to a wall-assisted shoulder stand. But then you're going to roll back down, vertebra by vertebra, back down to the floor. So we're going to do that a couple of times. You're going to roll up. First, your tailbone lifts off the floor. As your feet are pressing into the wall, roll up to the middle back, all the way up to the upper back, and then slowly roll back down, bit by bit by bit. Now, the next time you lift up into a shoulder stand, you might choose to hang out there. Bend your elbows, put your hands underneath your hips, and maybe even walk your feet up against the wall. So you're at this angle. Only if you're familiar with shoulder stand or your neck feels good, you can bring one leg at a time away into a half shoulder stand. And we haven't done any real prep to support the neck in this pose. You could roll up into a full shoulder stand. I'd be careful of this unless you've got something underneath your neck. But eventually you're going to put your feet back to the wall and roll back down vertebra by vertebra and rest with your legs up against the wall. So let's turn this into a wall-assisted hip opener. You're going to cross your right ankle over your left thigh into a figure four, and as you bend your left knee, push your right hand into your knee a little bit to give yourself a little opener, a little stretch in your right hip. Now, if you don't feel much because your left foot's against the wall, you could scoot your hips closer to the wall or just reach through into our classical figure four stretch where your foot's away from the wall. You're holding onto your shin. One thing I do like about this pose, if your foot can rest against the wall, is you can stay here for a good long time. There's not any effort to hold this. You just kind of push your elbow into your knee, kind of pull your right butt cheek down toward the floor, and see if that gives you that nice stretch. Long, deep breaths here. We're getting some prana, some oxygen into the areas we want to go. Then you're going to switch and send one leg at a time back up against the wall as you cross left ankle over right thigh. Resting your right foot against the wall, just kind of push your left forearm into the wall. Or excuse me, forearm into your knee, which is going in the direction of the wall. That's what I meant to say. Really nice. Now eventually both legs are going to go back up against the wall, and you're going to go legs wide, so like a Upavista Konasana, wide-legged position. And where we've done so much wonderful heavy lifting in our practice today, now we get a chance to kind of let time and gravity take over for a moment as we do some long, deep breaths and just open with arms wide, legs wide. Give yourself a nice gentle stretch here through the insides of the thighs, maybe a little bit of hamstrings. Now, it's probably difficult to see this, but my butt's not right up against the wall either, right? So I've got a little bit of space there, and you could negotiate that with either your sitting bones right up against the wall or slightly away, depending on what your body feels is right. Now bring the soles of your feet together and rest your outside edge of your foot against the wall into a wall-assisted version of Baddha Konasana. A little bit of pressure, so there's not too much pressure of your hands pushing into your thighs. You're just enjoying a nice, easy stretch. Long, deep breaths. Now from here, I'm going to invite you to send your legs back up against the wall. And we've already done the heavy lifting in our class, so you get to choose how intense you want this to be. We're going to work our core just a little teeny bit by bringing your hands back behind your head. And then version one, a little bit less intense, pull your elbows toward each other as you lift your upper back up toward the ceiling and just engage your upper abdominals. If you want to bring your feet away from the wall, and maybe even lift your sacrum up off the floor, that'll be a little bit more intense. Now, rather than pulling your elbows toward your shins, you're pushing them up toward your toes, or better said, even up toward the ceiling. Sacrum lifts, shoulder blades lifts. Of course, you keep your deep breath moving. And then rest again in just an easy legs up the wall pose. Couple rounds of deep breath. From here, pull your knees into your chest as you drop both knees over to your left. Look toward your right into a twist. Even kind of scoop your hip up over to the center of your yoga mat, so as you're reaching off to the side, you get a nice satisfying twist. And for me, because I'm close to the wall, the soles of my feet rest comfortably against the wall to support this twist. Deep, long, easy breaths. Really emphasize your exhales. On your next exhale, switch sides. Drop both knees over, all the way over to your right. Scoop your hips back toward the middle of your yoga mat. Feels so good. With Ujjayi breath. Now, we're going to start to move toward our final pose, Shavasana, and you could choose, if you're still close to the wall and you're really digging the legs of the wall pose, go back to legs up the wall pose and use that as a nice alternative to Shavasana. Otherwise, maybe take a moment as you kind of feel in to whatever your body might want to finish our practice today. Okay? You're welcome to come back to where you were, or I would say, least amount of effort possible. Let's just relax. Maybe send a breath or two out your mouth with a sigh. Let's remember that there's nowhere to get to but right here. We've already arrived. We've done a really wonderful yoga practice today. Layered with intensity. So much is going on. Now, this is the chance we get a chance to practice not doing and just being, just listening. I brought my clarinet today. I'm going to play a little music. And I invite you just to take several moments here and let's just relax. Let's just enjoy, take it all in. So if there's a way you can get even a little bit more relaxed, release your Ujjayi breath, release all those muscles around your face, begin to release your arms, release your legs. So let's all begin to put a little breath into our belly. A couple rounds of deep Ujjayi breath. Let your belly fill up all the way. Send that breath back out the nostrils. Wiggle fingers and toes. Do a little roll over to one side. And then come upright when you're ready to a seated position. As you're ready to, open your arms wide, lift your hands up toward the ceiling, nice full deep breath in, and exhale, hands back to heart. And if you want to join me, we'll finish with one Om together. Inhale. Thank you so much, and namaste.